to your third episode of On Air with me, Muralee Nair. In the first episode, we went to the mountainous terrain of Bhutan, where we met the waste warrior Namgay Wangchuk. And in the second, we were in the flatlands of Perth, where we met Srikant Gopalakrishnan, who was weaving his stagecraft. Today, we are delighted to meet Jude P Benny, who will take us through the oceans and the seas with his maritime exploits. Welcome, Jude. Welcome
Thank you.
to On Air.
Thank you very much, Murali. It's a pleasure to be joining you this morning.
Now, I know that you founded the law firm Joseph Tan Jude Benny, now well established as JDJB Legal. But I want to cut to the chase and go to one aspect of what you did, which was you created something that was very counterintuitive at the time when you set up your law firm, which was in the 1980s. And it's called the JDJB Global Network. What is this about?
Well, I think the whole concept of the JDJB Global Network sort of comes back to the initial question of how we wanted to define ourselves as a law firm. And um, and in so doing, I certainly always felt that we needed to do something different, because just to borrow a term from horse racing, people talk about when they publish the results of a race, they always talk about who came first, second, third, and then they list also ran. Also ran means the other whatever seven horses that also ran in the race. When I started the firm, I was determined that we would not be another also ran on the legal landscape in Singapore. So that really was the motivating factor, the driving factor that sort of made us decide that we had to do things differently, that we had to do, in fact, sort of head turning ideas and concepts. And so the JDJB Global Network was one way to actually do that. And so we decided that we would try and establish, within the confines of the budgets that we had, that we would start offices in certain jurisdictions. We chose Greece as our first overseas office, simply because Singapore was the busiest port, and the Greeks basically controlled the largest amount of tonnage in the world. So it made logical, sense for us to open an office there and to be offering our services as a law firm in Singapore, because their ships would be coming to Singapore. So we started that, and then we thought, one office might not be enough. So we then decided to open offices in Malaysia, Bangkok, Taipei, and so as we did that, we basically offered ourselves to what the West, termed difficult jurisdictions, jurisdictions that they didn't really know how to maneuver in because they didn't know very much about. So we decided to open offices in these places and then offer solutions, which would be a sort of a one stop. And that was something very novel at the time, in particular for a firm of our size, because we were we were by no means one of the mega law firms. So that's the idea. That's where it comes from, and that's what we were trying to do.
Oh, just to put it in a bit of a context, in the 1980s, when you had set up your law firm, there were many foreign, international firms that were coming to Singapore because of its maritime status. And what you did was the reverse. You said that, okay, I'm going to go out. Am I right in interpreting that?
Yes, you're absolutely right, because many of the sort of maritime law firms, international maritime law firms, came to Singapore on the basis that there would be a lot of maritime work, legal work here in Singapore. So rather than fighting it out with them here, because we already had domestic practice which we were happy with here. I felt that if we went out into these different jurisdictions, it would sort of widen the net for us. And more importantly, and I think what underpinned all of this is that I knew that if we did that, it would be a head turner. It would be a massive marketing tool that we could use, and it absolutely turned out that way because we were immediately, in the newspapers, in magazines, in legal publications, as a firm that was doing something different. Oh, Singapore firm opens office in Myanmar. Singapore firm opens office in Greece. So immediately we were brought into focus, and marketing is all about being in focus. Top of mind. People need to be reminded of your presence. And how do you do that? By sort of in drips. You've got to feed the market with interesting news. You've got to feed the market with things that you're doing, so that people then realize, hey, like, who are these guys? Like JDJB, like, what's this firm all about? And after a while, people begin to believe to accept and believe that there must be something to this firm. And then they start looking into you and they try and work with you. And of course, you've got to deliver the product. That's a given. But I've often been quoted to say, and I say this to my guys all the time, it's pointless having a good product if it's a well kept secret. What's the point? So we knew we had a good product, and we were not about to keep it a secret. We needed to get out there and put it into the market.
Interesting, Jude. Now, I went in search of some secrets of your firm, and I had an associate of yours send me some archive papers, and one thing that I found very interesting was that you're someone who's won many and earned many awards and accolades, titles. And here's one that I would like to read out. It's from the Singapore Maritime Foundation, from the then chairperson, Mr. Michael Chia. And he says, Jude, I'm delighted you were awarded the Public Service Medal 2013. And he goes on and he says, here I place on record, sorry, my eyesight. Here I place on record the following contributions that you have made to the SMF, as well as for the development of Singapore as an international maritime center. And he goes on to list 10 of these in what he calls inexhaustible efforts that you made for this particular, for the development of Singapore as an international maritime center. Now, I want to know, how did you feel when you received this letter? More importantly, when you received the award?
Um, Obviously, things like that move a person to sort of reflect a bit about how you've reached that point. And for me, obviously, I was delighted. I was thrilled to be given the medal in Singapore for my contributions to maritime Singapore. I spent a good number of years sitting on the board of the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore, which is a very active and statutory board that promotes maritime. And then I was also sitting for 6 years or 7 years on the board of the Singapore Maritime Foundation, SMF, which is what you just referred to. And these are all bodies that were trying to promote Singapore as a maritime hub. And as you know, Singapore has been very successful in doing that. And so to have been involved, I was the only lawyer sort of invited to sit on the board and doing that at that point in time. And that was fantastic for me because I made that transition, from being just sort of a lawyer to someone that was now connecting into the commercial as well as the policy making world of shipping. And that, gelled perfectly with my whole strategy of building the firm and bringing it into a place where people would recognize us more. And so so all of this worked perfectly because as a result of the work I was doing with the MPA in Singapore and overseas, I was constantly seen as Mr. Shipping, and not just Mr. Shipping, but Mr. Legal Shipping, and so all of that helped to build the firm as well. And but as I said, I mean, it was I had to deliver with a strong team, with a group of people that could deliver the work that was coming out of all of this publicity, that was being generated. So that was great. I mean, I remember because we opened a firm in Greece, and Singapore at that time, the MPA was not really focusing on Greece very much. And then they realized, like, who's this guy that's gone and opened an office in Greece? And as a result, I remember that I effectively for want of a better word, led the Singapore team into Greece when the MPA wanted to try and learn more about the market, meet the ship owners there and things like that. So for them to have looked to me to try and assist them to do that, clearly is a message that I'd earned their confidence, and as a result of that, in the Singapore context, when you're endorsed in that way, it generally helps in your other efforts as well.
Jude, you seized marketing opportunities right from the start, and I think nobody would actually dispute the fact that you are one of the vanguards as far as marketing legal practice is concerned. You've also used the same as flag bearer for Singapore as a forum for maritime disputes. Um, you basically bucked the trend of hyper conservatism that was prevalent in legal practice and legal firms, not just in Singapore but throughout the world. Now, what was your marketing conviction and driving force? I mean, what made you believe that it had to be marketed? There was space for legal practice and legal work to be marketed.
Yeah, I think, if you're looking back, the firm is now like 30, 37, 38 years old. But when we were starting, lawyers marketing was not really a big thing. And but I think within the confines of the rules, I again, fall back on what I said earlier, which is, you can have a good product, but if people don't know, it's pointless. So we had to find a way to sort of put the message out, and in so doing, I was constrained by a couple of things as well, which is, we didn't have the massive budgets that a lot of the international firms had. So we had to constantly sort of, think smart, think out of the box as to how we could make these things work. Going overseas, we use different methods. In some places we opened our own office, in others we did joint ventures, in some we even franchised, and that got us into the newspapers as well. Singapore law firm franchises its name for use. And I was even told that during one of the judges' lunches they were talking about it and wondering whether could this even be done. And the answer is yes, it could be done, and we were the first to do it. So from based out of Singapore. So the whole idea of doing these things was my sort of driving force. And I mean, very well as well that I've always liked music, right? I listen to all kinds of music, and even up to today, from 10 years ago, 20 years, and up to today, if anyone stops and asks me, Jude, what's your favorite song that you like? And I always say this song because it weaved its way into my entire thinking, and it's a song called "Running Against the Wind" by Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. It kind of dates me, but what can I say? I am old. But running against the wind, I knew is what we had to do. And we had to do it in a smart way. I didn't want to be blown away. I didn't want to be blown down. But I knew I was running against the wind. And that's what we've been doing for these entire 38 years, running against the wind. But, somehow, always finding a way to maneuver and to tact and the wind and to sail with it in the correct way.
Beautiful. Just on a slightly more light-hearted note, I was told that at one of the seminars or forums, anyway, at a presentation that you made, you you talked about the concept of trawler fishing and marlin fishing to reach your target markets, or how organizations could reach target markets. Could you please explain that?
Yeah. Oh, okay. I mean, it's actually quite a simple idea in the sense that you can have a target client that you want to get to. It is one target. You know this client and you want to get to them. I call that line fishing or marlin fishing because I'm putting out a line. I'm trying to hook this one big fish. On the other hand, by trawler fishing, all I meant was that you put out the nets and you trawl, and for that, which is my whole strategy, is I needed to be speaking at conferences and seminars. And so, I was constantly speaking in conferences and seminars, getting invited to these, and in that way, I was putting out the net because I was trawling and I didn't know what I would catch. I didn't know what would turn up in the nets, right? So I'm trawling, and so you've got two different ways of sort of going about trying to get clients. Either you zero in on one, or you throw a wide net and you see what gets picked up. And I can tell you that one of the biggest clients that this firm ever got, which is a multinational oil company, and you've probably pumped your gas or petrol from one of these. But that client I got simply because I was speaking in a conference, and after that, I didn't even know that the legal counsel was there. But 2 days later, I got a call, and they asked me if we would be interested in doing work for them, which was amazing because I was then in the process. In so doing, I would be taking this work away from one of the biggest firms in Singapore. But that was all as a result of trawler fishing. I just threw out the net, didn't know what was out there, I didn't know who was out there. So this is something that whenever I speak to my young lawyers, I try and tell them of these things that we've done over the years, and hopefully it's still relevant.
Um, Thank you for that. Jude, now, in summary, you're definitely a successful lawyer. You've made your mark globally, but you were also part of a highly successful cohort of lawyers, who graduated. They were the 1982-83 batch of pupils in Singapore. What was it like swimming in that highly illustrious pool?
Yeah, it's interesting because that pool, as you've correctly said, has thrown up judges, top-notch leading lawyers, but strangely, I never felt that I was swimming with them in any pool or anything like that, and I never even thought about their presence because I think I was singularly focused on what I was doing. I knew that they were my colleagues. We went to school together. I knew that they were doing very well, but I never stopped to try and compare or anything like that because I knew I'd taken a different course. Many of them had stayed in very large firms and became very successful. I knew that I had taken a different course. I'd gone, I chose to leave, one of these firms. I was there with them, but I chose to leave very early. And I chose to chart a different course. And I knew that it was pointless, sort of trying to look back. And I was determined to try and make this work. But certainly, I'm constantly, I'm always aware that our cohort, is a very is a very strong one, and they've all done well. And but as I said, I chose a different path, and I wouldn't change anything. If you ask me to go back, do it all over again, I would do it exactly the same way that I did it. And so, I said to someone the other day, I've got a scrapbook of practice and things that we have done, and if you actually close that scrapbook today, I'm happy with everything that's in it.
Well done. That's a very inspiring way of putting it. And your peers would certainly see to your business acumen. Even in appointed public service roles, you were known to bring a business edge to the way you looked at things and saw things. So, if you were not a lawyer, what? And what are your enduring qualities that you would have relied on in any chosen role?
Well, interesting because I don't really know any other life apart from being a lawyer. But I think if I was not in practice, I would probably be in business, in some kind of business, because as you've correctly said, I think I'm like a frustrated businessman or something, and I think I might have found something useful to sort of do there. Um, but I've never had a need to sort of think further along those lines because I've had enough to do in practice, and thankfully because I was I came out on my own and set up my own firm, and together with Joseph, Joseph Dato Jude Benny, I could use some of this business acumen in trying to build a firm, and so I think if I was not a lawyer, I'd still be doing something related to trying to build a business of some kind. I'm not sure what, but of some kind. And yeah, so I think if you're talking of what are the enduring points that have held true, I think. Three things really. One is faith. I believe and I know that I'm blessed. I know that God has looked out for me. Family, I've got a strong family, a wonderful family, and thirdly, I've just been so fortunate to have had many good people working with me. So many have come, worked with me, and left, and but I always say, that they've all played a part, even those who left sort of not really happy, but everyone played a part in building the firm. So I think these are the things that I will always remember as sort of the pillars.
Now, this coming to a personal side of you, Jude. Your wife, your family is your wife and two daughters. Your wife and you are both lawyers. Your daughters chose otherwise. Was it freedom of choice?
Absolutely. I mean, they as parents, and you would know too. All we want is for our children to be happy, to be healthy, and to have a good life. And so that both of my girls, one went to America to study, one went to the United Kingdom. They're both back in Singapore now, doing their own thing, and it's we've never felt that that they must practice law, so absolutely freedom of choice. Yeah, if they wanted to, we would have encouraged it, but this is their chosen course, and it just satisfies us that we see them happy.
You're the youngest of five children to the late Joseph and Elizabeth Benny. Why did they name you Jude? And what does the P stand for?
Okay, well, first, the short answer of P is filament, Philomen. So it's Jude Filament Benny, so JPB. Those are the initials. Why did they name? Well, actually, there's a very interesting story there, which I can tell you in 2 minutes. Essentially, I'm the youngest of five children, and when I was about to be born, my father was always quite sickly, was actually very, very ill. He was not even sure if he would make it. And I was about to be born. And so, of course, my mother, who's a housewife, with four young kids as well, it was a very worrying time. And so, but my father's very devout sort of Catholic, and so he prays a lot, and he said that if he had a son, he would name him Jude. Because he was praying to Saint Jude. Now, Saint Jude is the patron saint of desperate cases, of things despaired of. So he felt he was in a very difficult position, and so he prayed to Saint Jude, and he said, if I have a son, I will call him Jude. And in those days, of course, they didn't really know he would have a son or a daughter and things like that. And lo and behold, I was born exactly on the feast day of Saint Jude. It wasn't one day before, one day after, or anything. Exactly on that day, and which is what and it so worked exactly into what he was thinking, that he wanted to call me Jude. So he did call me Jude, and of course, now that I'm in practice, once or twice, some clients who are familiar with the concept, do say to me like, you are going to win this for us, right? Because you are the patron saint of desperate cases. I said, I'm not the patron saint. I said, I'm just named after him, and I can't say that it's always worked out that way, but it's just interesting idea, and that some people have. But basically, that's how I was named. That's why I was named Jude.
Thank you for that story. It's very interesting. It's also very heartwarming. Um, Finally, I can't leave without asking you this question. In going through your archival letters, there was one written by an applicant to join your law firm, actually to join one of your foreign offices. And he says that, dear sir, I'm not interested to be a legal eagle, but I want to be a maritime legal whale. Was that an inspired um, phraseology? Or
Um, well, I think that letter must have gone to the to the recruitment partner, because I've not seen it. But if I had seen it, I would have called him in, because I would have asked him to explain to me, what he thought he was trying to put across. I suppose, he wanted to be a legal whale in the maritime context, a really big fish, huh? And yeah, I think I would have had a very interesting conversation with this guy.
Jude, I think as it turned out, your recruitment partner did employ him, and I think he did spend some good years in one of your JDJB global network firms. Jude P Benny, thank you very much for joining me on air with Muralee Nair. You've told us a very inspiring story. It's for many of our viewers to listen and know that the commercial space is equally important in punching above your weight. You've led an inspired life and you have an inspiring story to tell. I hope that our viewers will join you on your social platforms to see the many things that you've done over the many years. And to our viewers, I say that we try and bring guests who could come from anywhere, doing anything in this small space that we call our world. They are inspired and inspiring folks, making a difference, giving hope and positivity in the world that we live in, and that needs healing in some ways. Finally, I wish to say this: please like, subscribe, and comment on your podcast. From me, Muralee Nair, my good producers, Tenzin and Lakshima, we're signing off from Perth.
Like, comment, and subscribe.